สวัสดีครับผมบิ๊กบุญและคุณกำลังฟังคำนี้ดีพอดแคสต์สะสมศัพท์กันวลนิดภาษาอังกฤษแข็งแรง Hey what's up you guys welcome to another episode of Comedy Podcast the English edition and joining us today of course the usual น้องจี Hi
Hi guys
So today we still have our guest
very special guest
because like we told you guys from the next episode we cross paths all the time we work at the same company but we hardly ever have time to sit down and talk and from the last episode we got to know this person this here of ours a lot better Pivit welcome back
Thank you very much by the way you introduced me in a way that I never expected before special guest I'm not Jose Mourinho I'm not special one
you are but you are very special
no not quite I'm ordinary person
so how long has it been working at the Standard
very well very refreshing empowering I learn new things every day
right
and I really absorb power from new generation and those who are younger than me like you
like Nong Ji actually I'm only 1 year younger than you are
well but you are younger than me
still younger
but you are young at heart I tell you
we both are I guess.
mean even though age-wise we might not be as young as we imagine we want to be but finally I think spiritually
right
both of us are still young
surrounding ourselves with a lot of youngsters help a lot I guess
really a lot we really absorb the energy of the young generation
have you always been good at working with a young people or young crowd or
I have to say one thing that youngsters here are of special kind
yeah how so
what I found is they really respect people I mean respect for me is the foundation of constructive dialogues
okay
they're really open to they have open mindset in order to listen to mindset of those who are older than them so and therefore with constructive dialogues I think that this is phenomenal for me working with young generation
so how do you feel about that Nong Ji hearing that from Pivit
I feel so good
well I mean because majority of people right now in our time we think there has been wars between generation
clash
I do understand that but for me the way out is open dialogues we respect each other and the young generation here are beyond my expectation they have open mindset and they really wish to hear what elderlies think and we really combine force together the synergy cross generational is the key for us to make our way progress
I think like at the center we're trying to like bridge the gap between all the generations so that the end products becomes even better
and incidentally you get to work with two of the Gen Zs
yes
they will be your show producers your first podcast which is going to actually has it been on the air
it's going on air next Tuesday
but we are recording in advance so okay so it's going to be your first podcast hosted by yourself and surprisingly it's not about finance or management
business.
or business or like cars or banks but it's about what Pivit
history
why
the topics really bores people and when I was young I hate everyone surrounding me who said you need to study history
so you hated history before
I hated it really
really
I mean history for me is the is a class that we simply memorize names and numbers,
years,
centuries, and difficult names to memorize. And finally, there are things of the past. We should be progressive.
Right.
We should concentrate on the future without having to turn ourselves back and look at what happened 2,000 years ago. I mean, what is the point for that?
But at one point, I guess you fell in love with history. How?
Turning point is difficult to say because I was not aware when precisely was that. But what I found, one thing that my passion in history came when I worked for a futuristic company called BMW.
Okay.
I found that European people. I don't know anything about American people because I don't get used to them a lot. When they talk, it seems that they have a lot of knowledge in history. And they are curious people. For example, when they come to visit Bangkok, when we have a management meeting, our regional meeting held in Bangkok, and I brought them to the Royal Palace, and they asked me, "Which can you tell me the history of the Royal Palace? When was it built? When was it built?"
I have no idea.
I'm laughing because that happened to me before too.
The problem is, we can't describe that because the system that we learn history in Thai will based on the system of Buddhist era. When you have a conversation with foreigners, finally, you can't describe to them because you can't take Buddhist era and minus 543 years and turn it into Anno Domini. And finally, it's mean that knowing Thai history and learning international history in Thai context, you don't have a connectivity. Thai history and international history. So and I was stunned, and they look at me amazingly. This is the history of your country, and you didn't know.
Oh my God.
So, and many times when I visited Munich, that was the headquarters of BMW. It seems that I know something, but I didn't know anything. This is Odeonplatz, where the leader of the Nazi party, Adolf Hitler, had his keynote speech. I know Adolf Hitler. I know Second World War. And what does it have to do with me? What does it have to do with car manufacturing industry in Germany? When I met Japanese people, Japanese colleagues, likewise, they seem to know history quite well, and they are curious in history. And I ask myself, it seems that people in highly developed country, they really pay attention to learning history.
Yeah.
And that's when I turned my interest into history. But another factor is I was a big football fan.
Oh, yeah.
And when I read Italian newspaper, by the way, because I follow Italian football. Many times, apart from history of football or the profile of football itself, they combine historical knowledge in it. For example, there were players from Yugoslavia, and the news said he will miss the next 2 matches because he needs to go back to Bosnia. Yugoslavia, Bosnia, the war Serbia and Bosnia, who are they? That's history. So these environments really urge me to think about the importance of history. But a really turning point could be this. In the year 1997, if you ring the bell, that year, the British Empire, as they once called, lost one of their last territory in their domination. They hand over Hong Kong to mainland China after the end of the lease plan 99 years. And I studied history there by watching a film which is called The Opium War. And the Opium War, you might have heard, Opium War happened in the year 1840. What is it important? Before 1840, the largest economy worldwide was China. Today it's America. But when they lost the war towards the British Empire, they become the second beneath the British Empire. That really interests me enormously. And by that time, when I watch that films, it really rings the bell. Why China, which was once really great, suffer because of the small island called British Empire or British Isles. So that's really divert my interest from something else to history.
And how well I really get when you say that sometimes people don't pay attention to history because it seems that is not relevant to our life right now, right?
In the present, right?
Yeah. But actually you have you can see the connection, right? Because what happened in the past makes today and it's going to affect the future too.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the chain of history. When I study history in Chulalongkorn University, my bachelor degree was in Chulalongkorn University, there was a subject whose name is pretty strange. It's called, in short, BackCon. Background Contemporary World.
Wow.
Instead of calling history, it's called Background Contemporary World.
Wow.
That means that the current world that we are living in today have its background. And that is the way they call history. If you look at the surrounding right now, everything are consequences of history. And you can learn a lot from the development or from historical development of certain incidents. For example, if you look at your iWatch, for example, have you ever questions why one day the USA has become the greatest nation on earth? Simply a question. Simply questions. One day before America was a superpower, leader of the world, I mean liberal world, was United Kingdom. Why do they lost their leadership to America? And how China, who was once politically and economically socialist and communism, they are about to surpass America. I mean, these have historical explanation all along. And history is really the way to explain the world we are in here today. But for me, apart from professional desire to know the development of many things in the world, history is fun.
Yeah.
Imagine when you watch films. I'm sure that many of you might fall in love with many historical based films.
Right.
For me, Gladiator, Saving Private Ryan. What about yours?
I like Saving Private Ryan.
Yep.
And what's the other one?
I like
Maybe
The
you
Last
have any?
Emperor.
For example,
Yeah.
these are history. So I mean, for me, I start learning history with passion because it's fun. I simply wish to know how come a boy at the age of 3 were put on the throne, and finally he was thrown away from commoners, from the movement of the commoners. What was before that? How come a small island called Japan invade large country like China? I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Especially the history that I really enjoy is nation building.
Oh, okay.
History of nation building. Look at the Japanese. They are small islands, but finally they are superpower. And when I read some history, they said the Japanese really extend their muscles when they won the war against Russia in the year 1910 or 1912, 1914. So this really make me curious, and I'm very passionate about history.
So let's talk about your show a little bit. What is it called?
It's called 8-Minute History.
Okay.
Why
First
8
of all,
minutes?
yeah, why 8 minutes? And talking about history, like as a term, it's already overwhelming because there's a lot of history. Everything in the past is history, and there are several parts of the world. So how do you even start with this show? 8 minutes. How do you tell stories?
Thank you very much for asking. This is the initiative of the Gen Z team.
Oh.
That tells me, Hewitt, it seems that if you talk longer than 10 minutes, that would bore people. I totally understand. Yeah? And so, how can I choose the topic? The two producers say to me, based on our curiosity, that's clever. Imagine, because I think instead of we try to tell the story, we think, what do they want to know? Which part of history? I mean, the universe of history is so huge and very vast. So if you said history, you're dead. You will take years and months or even millenniums in order to elaborate the entire history of mankind.
Right.
But if you starting with curiosity, yeah, with questions. I'm a Socrates type of person who believe that all intelligence start from good question.
Right.
Yeah? And this young generation asked me, well, for example, I wish to know the last emperor. Great. Okay, that's the point. That I try to be selective and select a part of history that could match the curiosity of the youngster. Some of them, they ask me, well, we heard a lot about the Red God or Cultural Revolution in Chinese history. Well, that's good point.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yes, and then I try to find the answer. Yeah. Another difficult thing about elaborating history is that there are many details. It is difficult. I'm not saying very difficult. It's pretty difficult that we have to wrap it up and structure the answer to be understandable and enjoyable within limited times, 8 minutes. But for me, this is challenge and fun at the same time. So the reason why it's 8 minutes, first of all, to ensure that people do not get bored because the answer is quite sizable and digestible within short times and it can maintain its momentum. But the key challenge is that I need to structure my mind. I need to be selective about what should be the key points that I presented, what are of second priority that I will prefer not to share. So for me, it's a brain exercise.
Oh yeah.
And for me, when I grow in the past, I think when we work on anything, we need to elaborate it at length. That's mean long.
Yeah.
But people in this century, we demand for something very concise, easy to understand, sharp, short, got to the point.
Yeah.
And therefore, I need to adjust my pace. And I said, when they said 8 minutes, one of the most challenging thing is please elaborate historical period during the period of the 3 kingdoms in 8 minutes.
Wow.
And I said, I must be able to do it. And I did it.
Wow.
Wow.
In 8
Great
minutes.
job.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. People
Imagine
would think that
if it's too long, it will interest no one.
Yeah. And people would think the shorter the easier, but actually it's the other way around.
Yeah.
The shorter, the more difficult to explain.
Good. You know,
right?
I'm the person who enjoy collecting golden phrases from different people, and one of the quotations that I like is from Leonardo da Vinci. They said, "La simplicità è la massima raffinatezza." Simplicity is the utmost sophistication.
Wow.
I do like that.
Such a good quote.
I really like that. Many people, especially the elderly, would say, "Oh, 8 minutes. I can't elaborate the long history within 8 minutes." You have to be able to do that because people in this 21st century, we have limited times. We have shorter concentration.
Right.
It is our job in order to shorten your presentation in an entertaining way,
Right.
enjoyable way.
Is even more difficult to do. Not everybody can do that. I mean, talk short, understandable, enjoyable.
That's demand certain kind of intelligence. Let me share with you one intelligence from a brother of mine. Yeah. He attend many meetings. He's top management of big conglomerations, and he said to me that whenever I have a meeting, I said to them, please give your presentation within, for example, 15 minutes. People would say it is impossible because there are many details. He told to his attendees, well, when you enter into the exam rooms and they said you have 2 hours, can you ask them to extend to 3 hours? No. If I demand 15, that means you have to finish in 15. And finally, everyone can do it.
Yeah.
Simply change your mindset that the longer the better into the shorter the better.
So would you be talking about the history from all parts of the world, or are you focusing on a specific part?
It has to be specific one because I mean history. Not many people is able to know comprehensive history. My passion is Roman history.
Wow.
You might ask why.
Yeah.
I study in the Catholic schools. I'm a product of Thai education, but I study in a Catholic school called St. Gabriel's.
Yeah.
And at St. Gabriel's, we watch one films all the time, Jesus of Nazareth. Okay, and these films related to other films, Ben-Hur. And that's in the Roman period.
Right.
Also, Gladiator, not directly, but they are more or less in the Roman Empire. So, whenever I see Roman period film, I'm passionate in it. And I try to find out every single details about Roman history and Roman civilization. Spartacus, for example. And second thing, my parents are from China. And I watch Hong Kong television series and Kung Fu films all the time. Yeah? For example, the Legend of the Condor Hero or Mangkon Yok. Oh, yeah. And when I watched these films, especially history-based novels, let's say Mangkon Yok, for example, so I pay a lot of attention to Chinese history, especially the period that are the historical background for certain novels.
Right.
And history of First and Second World War, because they're not far away from us. And there are countless numbers of films surrounding us relating to the Second World War. And the other subject is Cold War in our region. Indochina, Vietnam War, the end the breakout of Phnom Penh, for example. These are my key interests.
Yeah.
But of course, knowledge are expandable.
Yeah. People would think and people would find out that if you know more history and if you understand history better, you enjoy movies more.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of enjoyment.
Yeah.
There are many of them. For example, like Ben-Hur. If you watch Ben-Hur, I don't know whether you watched Ben-Hur. I mean, it was a film in the year 60s by Charlton Heston, but it was a very long time ago, before we were born. But recently, it was a remake version, in which I think equally entertaining. And when I watched that, if you look at the Roman consul in that movie, they are the same Roman general as in Jesus of Nazareth and Passion of the Christ. Imagine, and when I look at that, I never know that before. Because they are in the period of the crucifixion of the Christ. And you will know a lot of details. Once you know a lot of details, it is not only element of fun and entertainment. You are able to exercise your brain to connecting the dots. And especially in our century, 21st century, you are able to find out answers to almost all questions in this entire planet. Simply go onto your fingertip and click.
Yeah.
So this is a real fun to me.
So you'll be talking a lot about Roman Empire and European
Chinese
history and Chinese, right?
Chinese is I don't know why, but it seems that the youngster wants to know Chinese history, and especially I mean on also the Second World War. They are really something that we all should learn.
Yes.
Another thing is that once you learn history, especially those who enjoy learning foreign language. I mean, I'm not saying only English, but also in some other languages. History, names of people from different nationalities. Can sometimes inspire you to learn new languages. For me, history itself might not be a practical subject, but it inspires you to think more. It inspires you to connecting the dots. Sometimes inspires you in order to be passionate in new languages, which will be, of course, value added to your life. For example, I learned Italian and I learned German mainly because I'm passionate in the history of these two nations. In some part, starting with I want to pronounce those names correctly.
Yeah.
So, or sometimes I want to know the abbreviation of certain words.
Right.
So, and that's really inspire people to have more value added, to learn more.
Yeah. They do come together.
Yeah.
Like history, languages, and cultures.
All
Yeah.
the time. So.
So you've been recording some episodes, right? How many have you recorded?
I think about 10
Okay.
already.
So could you talk a little bit about those episodes that you have recorded?
Oh, like
What
a
were
little
you talking
sneak
about?
peek.
Let's start with the Cultural Revolution. Many people would have heard about Cultural Revolution. It's the decade that Mao Zedong, who is the founding father of
China.
communist China, tried to eradicate any kind of cultural root in Chinese society that spanned over about approximately 10 years, 1966 to 1976. But finally, it's really undermined the strong foundation of China. But people would ask, what is the turning point? From when China destined to become an idealistic communist country. And then they turn on to market capitalist.
Oh yeah.
Then one of the episode is dedicated to the downfall of the Cultural Revolution, to the rise of Chinese capitalist markets, led by Deng Xiaoping. And the foundation that Deng Xiaoping laid 3 decades ago has turned China to be the second largest economy in the world.
Wow.
Who would think that nowadays you can't be away from Chinese technology?
Yeah.
Who would think that one day China will be the second largest economy in the world? So I explain historical development in that episode.
Wow.
It's like listening to stories. Don't think of it
I
as
like
history,
that.
but
Don't
story.
say history, it's story.
Yeah.
It's stories.
story.
Yeah.
They're so much fun.
So, and also the Second World War.
Oh yeah.
People would know Second World War caused by this and by that. And I try to pack that within 8 minutes. The start of the war until the end of the war.
In 8 minutes.
In 8 minutes.
Wow.
Crazy.
What a,
That's crazy.
But of
Crash
course, I mean,
course.
you can't expect the comprehensiveness
Right.
and details at the same time.
Yeah.
But at least people would know the development from start until the end and the highlights of that.
Wow.
Is
It's very challenging for you.
why Germany, with a citizen of around 78 million people, one of the largest in terms of population in Europe, turns to be the country that sparks the war. And Hitler, many people look at him, he looked very comical with a very funny mustache. But finally, majority of German people believe in him. Which sounds strange. People of the society which is well educated should have consciousness, should have learned and should be able to anticipate the harm of going to war, finally subject themselves to Hitler. What was that? And aftermath, I elaborate in some of the episode too, that the prime minister or the German chancellor went to Warsaw, where the Nazi German killed millions of Jewish Polish, and then he kneeled down to apologize to Polish people. I mean, these really ring the bell to us, and we really learn the lessons from history.
I guess you have to read a lot. I mean, in order to educate yourself and get information all about history, you must be reading a lot, right?
No, I'm a bad reader.
Really?
I'm a bad reader. Okay,
How do you
okay.
learn?
Good. This is a very good point. I heard this word, and my mom told me, wait, look at this English phrase. She cannot speak English, but he read it to me. Great readers become great leaders in the future. Because she knows her son is bad in reading. But another point is, if you read 10 books, but your ability to memorize is bad, this is one thing. For me, myself, is I have a willingness to memorize everything. Not I'm good in memorizing things, but when I read it, I memorize things. I said, me, myself, I don't have anything good, but I have good memory. I read limited amounts of books. I don't read a lot of books, this is my fault in life. Don't imitate me. This is not a good example. But when I read books, when I watch films, I try to memorize it. Sometimes to memorize, you might not be able to understand what you memorize, but you keep it in yourself. And once you find the answer, you're connecting the dots.
That's a great superpower to have. Actually, I would like to have this superpower.
One thing that I really could not understand is Thai people always criticize Thai education system and say education system here in Thailand simply demand students to memorize things. But for me, ability of your brain to memorize things is the basic ability. If you read and if you can't memorize what you read, even though you have great imagination, but without correct information, without being able to memorize the data, how will it end?
Yeah.
So memories. I have to say one thing. I'm a product of Thai education. In the first 16 years, I studied here in Thailand. I know Thai education is boring. Very boring. Okay? I criticize some of them. But finally, we need to build an ability to memorize. Once you memorize things, you are not forgetful people. You are able to connecting the dots because everything is in your mind, not in the book any longer.
Yeah.
So how do you want to see history taught in school?
Enjoyable way. Yeah. History in school, there are two things. First things, should there be any kind of historical books, we need to put Anno Domini number in there.
Okay.
Look at one thing. Key point for Thai history is 1782. Why is that? It's the year that Bangkok was found to be capital of Thailand. And if you memorize in this way, instead of 2325 Buddhist era, if you memorize in different terms in Anno Domini 1782, you would know Bangkok was found 6 years after American Revolution. 7 years before French Revolution. You can have a connectivity between the two.
You make
but in the
connections
past, you never know.
Yeah.
In an instant.
Yeah. In a broader area. You see the world as a world. And we are part of that.
In the past, we see Thailand history or Thai history as a fully detached part of the world history. For example, I went to give a lecture at one of the leading universities here in Thailand. And I simply asked them, do you know Napoleon? Yes. In comparison to Thai history, when was that?
Wow. I can't
I don't know
answer
that.
I didn't know too.
So when?
That's King Rama too.
Oh, okay. Now you make some sort of connection.
Correct. The reason, I didn't enlighten myself, but a football player from Germany who visited Thailand, whom I act as his translator when he visited Thailand, ring me the bell. By that time, Borussia Dortmund, one of the leading German football teams in Bundesliga, sent their envoy here to Thailand to train players at Suphanburi province schools. I went there and I accompanied that player whose name is Lars Ricken. He was the decisive goal scorer that brought Borussia Dortmund to be crowned the European champion in the year 1996. I brought him to the King Naresuan Memorial and I elaborate the heroic actions by King Naresuan, who declared independence against Myanmar, Burma by that time. I elaborated to him for about 10 minutes. He asked me, thank you very much, Wit, but in comparison to European history, which year was that? I kept stunned. Totally. Because I didn't have any connections. And finally, I found out that was around the period of Leonardo da Vinci.
Wow.
If I was able to refer the beginning of Ayutthaya with Renaissance, he will be able to understand Thai history much better.
I mean, just now, I started to see a different
pattern.
Yeah, patterns.
Wow. And like as a like liberal arts student myself, I have to learn history too, but I've never really thought of it. Like the way Thai history and European history, they happen together, but I've always like separated them somehow. I don't know why.
This is because curriculum.
Yeah.
When we study in Thai history and even European history in Thai textbook, we have Buddhist era.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is not good. We are Buddhist country, of course. I know that. But finally, we need to internationalize ourselves a little bit. That could help. Especially if you look at recent history. That's really help. For example, First World War. When was that? Oh, people turn. Oh, we didn't know. First World War was 110 years ago, but we didn't know it. That was King Rama VI. If we have connection, that will be wonderful. Another thing which was quite similar to what last weekend asked me a question when I visited Cambodia 2 years ago. We visited Angkor Wat. Oh, that's architecture was great. The French wrote history in the museum and have a comparative historical. The year Angkor Wat started being built was the same year as when Notre Dame Cathedral finished their construction.
Really?
If you know the two civilizations, you enrich yourself with international elements. You don't limit yourself as a Thai citizen, but we are global citizen through history.
I don't know why, but that sounds even more intriguing. Now I want to know more about Angkor Wat and Notre Dame together.
Yes, imagine. I mean, the two worlds have got different civilization. Of course, one side, I mean, Oriental side, they have manpower, 10,000 of them. Whereas Notre Dame, they have technology. But at least you are able to link. And likewise, imagine when I dig it down. Do you know that the first recorded European person who is in China, who was that?
European person in China?
In China. I mean, there might be informal visit, but
explorer? So yeah,
almost explorer. Marco Polo dal Venezia. Imagine that was the first time that Europeans come to the imperial court in China and met Emperor of China.
Right.
Simply because in the past, I mean, the history of the two parts of the world, let's say the Chinese Empire or the Han's Empire and the Romans never meet each other because they are too far away from each other. And the linking East and West, for me, that interests me enormously.
Yeah. Us too. I think I please do this on your show always because it is a lot of fun.
I'm really sure hope that it entertains you.
Yeah, please.
Looking,
talk about this, like
it.
the two world, like what happens at the same time. That's super fun.
That's really something. And the film that I really encourage people to watch is the Opium War. And one of the episodes talks about the Opium War in the films. And what I talk in that episode is the way the British merchants whose opiums were seized by the imperial court in China, describe his knowledge about China to the British members of parliament. The scene was in city of Westminster, in the House of Parliament, and he brought 3 of the Chinese art craft from Han Dynasty, which was made from bronze, and the jade historical piece in Tang Dynasty, and then a ceramic in Qing Dynasty.
Oh, so like a 3-piece.
The 3 pieces of artifacts.
Oh, did you talk about this on the first episode?
Yes.
Oh, hey. Yeah, we're going to be hearing
why the
stories.
Hans represent bronze, why the jade represent Tang, and why the ceramic, painted ceramic, represent Qing. And why did that urge the parliament in the UK to declare war against China?
Wow, sounds interesting already.
Yeah, sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
Sounds like a novel.
So if you ask me, another recommendations for history education here in Thailand is make it fun.
Right.
Make it fun. Instead of open a textbook, no. You might find a clip in YouTube or some clips of the films that's related to the part of history that you want to teach students or pupils. Entertain them first, inspire them first,
Right.
and then they will be engaged with history. Okay. One of the former director of my school, he told, good teacher inform, great teacher inspires.
Wow.
Yes, such a good
I
point.
want these 8 minutes to inspire people to think not only history for the sake of history, but as the starting point of sparkling their minds, of inspiring them to connecting the dots,
Right.
of reminding them to think more carefully about how history should be written in the future.
Can I ask you one more thing?
Sure.
A lot of times when we talk, you talk often about soccer. It always goes back to soccer for
Yes.
you for some reason
Italian
because
especially.
yeah, you're a big soccer fan.
Very.
If you have to talk about soccer on your show, so soccer with a pinch of history, what would you be talking about or telling us? What kind of stories would you be telling?
I would say that soccer or football is education. Football is not simply a game. If you look at the British schools, soccer or football and rugby, either one of them, is a compulsory course. Yeah? Many people look at football as the way, as an entertainment. No, not at all. Football is a way that educate people how to live together. Okay? Therefore, when I look at football, it's not purely entertainment, but rather อะไรหรอ
ขอ5 นาที เดี๋ยวพี่เคนจะเข้ามาอัดต่อค่ะ
Oh, okay.
ได้
Okay.
เขาจะภายใน5 นาที
But
ได้เลย
rather, 1, 2,
ลืม
3,
แล้วก่อนหน้านั้นพูดว่าอะไร
it's not only entertainment, but rather.
Football is not a pure entertainment. It's rather an education. It is the way that people, a group of people, let's say 11 people, live together. Divide their labor in accordance to their expertise. When I watch football, it is not only that I enjoy football as such, and we look at the way the coach managed the team. Imagine if you have foreign coach, what language do they speak? If they have international players with different wavelengths and different habits, how will they melt them together in the melting pots? And football in different countries, let's say Italian footballs, they really show off that mentality. Italian, they are said to be twins of Thai people. You know that?
Really?
We are last minute doer. Sorry to say, I'm not saying it is bad.
Yeah.
But
Just
Thai
the
people
way
like
we
Italian,
are.
we are pragmatists.
Right.
We never prepare. We act instinctively.
Yeah.
And we always score, for example, the Italian always score winning goals in the last minute. They equalize the game of life and death in the last minutes. Mentality really spell out in football game. The Germans, they are very systematic.
strategic
Whoever fill in this particular plan, whichever nature that player is or have been, you have to play like what I say. This is Germans. Unlike the Italian. I have a chance to talk to Jörg Heinrich. He's a German player who once played in Italy with Fiorentina. And I asked him, you were in Fiorentina for 2 years. How do you find the difference between German and Italian football? He said, German football, we play in accordance with what the coach said. But Italy, when we start playing for the first time, the coach didn't tell me anything. I asked him, what should I play? The coach, whose name is Trapattoni, said, you play whichever you want. In a what I call the demo session, partitella, this is what I call in the training. Afterwards, he said, Coach, I don't know how to play. You play as you want to play. After 45 minutes, the coach Trapattoni went to Jörg Heinrich and said, well done. Thank you very much. Now I know what kind of nature you are. And I'll build a team around the nature of the players.
Wow.
So football is soul and mentality. Football is not a game. And for me, I collect football jerseys, hundreds of them, because each of them represent certain stories.
Wow. Stories again.
Yeah.
That entertain you, and that inspires me every day.
Right.
Sometimes when I feel down and I look at my idol football players, the way he struggled with his difficulties, the way he overcome obstacles, the way that he overcome injuries. Like last week when I lost my voice, a doctor who injected me the medicine told me, think of Zidane. He's a football fan. Why? In the Football World Cup 2002, Zidane suffered a lot because of calf injury. And finally, in the third game, he was forced to play. He inject medicine, and then he play. Likewise, I inject you medicine. Tomorrow, think of Zidane. Go on and perform.
The doctor knows you so well.
I mean, he's a close friend of mine. And this is what he told me. And that works. I think of Zidane. Zidane played 90 minutes. Football is a very demanding sport. For me, I only speak a couple of words. Piece of cake. And I finish the job.
Wow.
He's
So
such
very
a great
inspiring.
storyteller.
Yeah.
And that's the least that you can expect from the new show of his.
Yeah.
8-minute history.
8-minute history.
Now I want to know more about Italian football.
Yes.
I am never a big soccer fan in whichever way, but now I want to know more because he told such a great story. Don't you think so, Nung T?
Yeah, and that story stuck with us forever.
Yeah.
Like now we know that Zidane had his calf injected with medicine and pulled through the World Cup.
I mean, and football is a big theater. You can learn new story. You can be inspired, you can be motivated every day with games of football. But talking about the Italians, the reason I like Italians and the reason that I follow football is because different nationalities, they have different mentalities. Let me share with you one thing that I don't share in the 8-minute history because it's not history.
Okay.
I have one project. I want to know who are the Thais? What are definitions of Thai people? One
As a
way-
soccer player?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
In general.
because it's representing the way we play football anyway.
Okay.
In general.
All right.
Okay. I always ask foreigner. After having been here in Thailand for some years, what do you think about Thai people? And I get amazing answers. None of them is bad. Believe me. I asked a first person, he's a German, he's a CEO of a car company, together with French president of Thais manufacturers, asking about the Thais. What do you think about Thais? He said, the Thais is the most creative nations in the world.
Wow.
And I said, don't pull my leg. No, wait, let me finish. That was the first part. But the Thais only implement your intelligence and your creativity in the last minutes and in crisis time. And he said to me, you have twins in Europe. Do you know who they are? The Italians. That's why I fall in love with Italian football. They are very much like Thai people. They don't put a lot of energy in playing. I mean, when they are not one down or two down, they start playing like angels, like gladiators, when they are about to be knocked out.
Wow.
Well, one thing I would like to remind our listeners about the show is that it's going to be in Thai. It's not going to be in English.
Yes.
He keeps talking in English because we asked him to, and this is comedy podcast. But for every podcast, it's going to be in Thai.
Yeah.
But we have so much fun. We enjoy your stories a lot,
Yeah.
told in English. And we, of course, would like to invite you back several more times
Yes.
to talk about stuff.
I
just
really
like
hope
this.
that I don't bore you.
No, not at
never.
all.
I really hope that.
He is such a great storyteller. And if you want more of him, you just go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The
Yes.
Standard Podcast, and just look forward to his show, which is called, once again, Nung T,
8-minute history.
8-minute history. So, thank you so much, Hewitt, for coming on the show.
I do appreciate the opportunity that you give to me.
We have so much fun.
Yeah, it's been such
we
a
hope you come
fun
back.
session.
Yeah. Well, we can talk more about soccer anytime or history or
And language learning.
oh yes.
Language learning.
I really enjoy learning new languages.
Yes.
We need another episode for that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's invite him back. Let's book him in advance
Yes.
because he's very busy.
Yeah.
Okay. And go watch the Morning Wealth show at 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. every morning, Monday to Friday. And once again, 8-minute history.
Yes.
Every-
Every Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, 2 episodes.
Yeah, 2
a week.
episodes a week.
That's so cool. All right. So thank you so much for joining us, Hewitt.
You're
And-
more than welcome, both of you.
Okay. All right. And thank you so much for our listeners also. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you like our content, if you think it's fun, it's useful, please like and share.
Yeah.
And that's it for today. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.
Vi ringrazio moltissimo, arrivederci.